A question of awe in support of Fellow Human by me, Neil Stevens. As my poem Fellow Human talks about, it seems to me that when it comes to separating ourselves and placing ourselves into specific categories, we quite literally made a complete mess of it. It's not that separating the whole and creating groups is a negative thing, for of course you end up with many smaller positive groups. But as we created more and more groups to cater for all tastes, beliefs, feelings, understandings, etc., we bred the growth of negative viewpoints between those groups by focusing too heavily on our differences. And it also caused us to lose our way as we created many perceived differences that are just untrue. Furthermore, we've applied some small group truths to large groups, even though we know that once the group grows in size, it's impossible that what we say is true actually is. This mistake in grouping is, for me, what set us on a path of destruction, as we gave birth to the belief in stereotypes, which in turn led to dislike and even pure hatred. We grew to concentrate so strongly on we're different, just different, by starting to believe in differences that mean nothing or really don't exist. At the same time, we began to ignore reality, the fact that we're pretty much the same. Undeniably, we are all made the same way and are made up of the same stuff. The trouble is that when we make our differences so significant, we fail to focus on any similarities. This for me is our complete failure in the process of grouping, for to go as far as believing that we're so different to another group that we just cannot get along and even need to hate and potentially destroy them is ludicrous. We go that far, yet at a solid base level, we are no different at all, and we all know it. Now, the process of grouping and discovering which groups you feel best suit you is a learning process. When we're born, we know absolutely nothing about where we fit. We learn about that as we grow, and when we learn, that is what moulds us to sense where we belong. It's where we choose to stop learning that causes our grouping process to fail miserably. For so often we learn quickly that we are different and then stop at that point. Then far too often we focus on those differences and promote them as if they really matter. Take, for example, sports team supporter rivalry, something that has often gone to such an extreme level of hatred, it's hard to understand. How stupid does it sound when you can say, here, you may get someone who loves their family and works hard for them, fully against someone who loves their family and works hard for them. That's just my way of saying that quite literally, it can separate decent person from decent person. I have my own personal football, like soccer that is in American terms, support story, which is a rather good one, and I'm recording that separately so you can see that if you like. We've done this with sport supporting, and we've gone even deeper into hatred with such groupings as racists and bigots, etc. Then, in clearly what represents our lowest points, the belief in differences has led us to outright wars. Many such wars were just like sport supporting. We all know decent person goes against decent person. I'm obviously stating that I just cannot understand this process at all. I've debated against it for years and continually been an advocate for far more collaboration. This has led me to this simple concept of the question of all, which I'll now explain. I've heard it said in relation to groups that elicit the aforementioned strong negative behaviours that their understanding of grouping is an uneducated viewpoint. Yet, as said, such viewpoints have been learned and therefore taught. I feel it's hard to deny that during our upbringings they are taught, learned, ingrained and then adamantly believed in. because from the start they are taught by our closest kin, those who help us grow up. Therefore, I feel we must never say uneducated, but more so not educated enough, perhaps not open enough. These are the people who are focused in on nothing but real and perceived differences between us, and given them way too much significance. They've stopped continuing to look at reality and learn as much as they can. They've stopped at the teachings of their closest kin and stayed blind to the reality that was not taught. Truly, in a world where all knowledge is at our fingertips and in the palms of our hands, there is now no excuse at all for making this choice. To blindly believe only a specific set of teachings and refuse to accept anything new, especially that which we know is real, is to act with ignorance. I'm not stating here that we should believe everything we see online, far from it. But that is where you can now so quickly discover in-depth knowledge of many topics if you take the time to do good quality research. In all honesty, if we just use common knowledge, you know that many things believed about each other are obviously not true and enter into the realms of nonsensical. We could demonstrate this by using the most negative of language and expression that we know of today, that is openly taught to certain group members about other groups that we've created. Let your imagination fly with that one, and I'm sure you can come up with thoughts that make you react with some sadness and anger when you consider the levels we've reached. I feel sad and I get quite mad about it, as I cannot believe that humans can let themselves down so badly and they get so discriminatory against each other. But with the writing of Fellow Human, this poem I wrote, and now this question of awe, I'm trying to adapt. When you just consider that certain viewpoints and beliefs only exist because of ignorance, that choice to ignore further education and knowledge gathering and blindly believing things that are nonsensical, then you can stay calm when dealing with such viewpoints and just ask the question of all. To explain, when we focus on the viewpoints and sentiments of groups who we deem negative and unhealthy, we should note that such groups only exist due to continually narrowing down from the whole to the point of acute specification, which is often derogatory and stereotypical, as I said. Yet, at that point, the language used is often used to describe the whole once again. This is where the simple question of all can be asked, and it makes all such viewpoints and sentiments fall apart, proving that they are truly nonsense. Let's take a simple common phrase that I feel you may be aware of. They come over here taking our jobs. Here we got really lazy with the grouping, as it's just they in reference to anyone who perhaps isn't originally from the here. This just deserves the one easy response. Really, all of them? Common sense in relation to the phrase tells us we're talking about a group of people, and so we can then add some nice detail just for the fun of it, like all, as in all their granddads, all their grandmas, all their mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, all of them. And if you look at this, all come to take our jobs, we can look at that as well. In other words, who's they? And with this particular statement, as I said, we can look at the jobs, all the jobs. And say, what, they took all the jobs? Really? All of them? I think not. Point being that when we home in on a grouping and then become lazy enough to name it they, we've gone as far as we can to prove that much of the grouping we've done is truly worthless and we don't take it seriously, because we contradict ourselves. You must ask, who's they? For the word refers to a whole group. And it's not uncommon with this phrase, it refers to a nationality. Then we must ask, really all of them? Because obviously the answer is no. And it's obviously the same answer for the jobs taken. To which I feel we can answer, okay, so what's the problem? Because when it comes to it, the statement should be, some, come here and take a few of our jobs. Yeah? The result being that often we take a swathe of humankind and label them with some thin term or attribute that holds no true or real meaning for the group as a whole. Considering further examples, note that we use colour, yet we all know no one is actually truly the colour we state. I am not white. The walls behind me are white, they're painted white. You stick me against that, I am not white. Then our colours are so wide-ranging that it makes no sense to group us with the ones we use. Rather than try to specify our colours, colours should be an irrelevant grouping category. We often use entire nationalities as a group, and this is farcical. An entire population is so various that to even try and specify anything about it is crazy. Another irrelevant category. I live in China currently, and many people, expat, are here, and I'm guilty a little bit sometimes. Oh wow, the Chinese is 1.4 billion people. Yeah, the Chinese. Yeah, right. Okay. Couldn't be more various, this country. It's amazing. Now then, if we think of relevant groups, I should say, then we must think on a much smaller scale and be definitively specific, as in assured that what we state holds true for all group members. Furthermore, what we state must be truthful and not an obvious fabrication or nonsensical idea. If this is adhered to, it clearly only works for smaller specific grouping and never for a mass amount of global citizens on the scale of such things as perceived colour or nationality, etc. You just cannot take a large group such as this and tag them with what are obviously only small group specific attributes. It's illogical. Overall, there's only one group that exists for us that can be the all, and that is human. For we are all humans. If I ask you, are you human? There's only one answer. Now, of course, as a human, you can ask, where do I fit? You can believe in and be proud of your cultural upbringing, and you should be. But why then move away from focusing on being mainly the whole, where we all fit? Why choose to forget that every other human is very much like you in so many ways, just because they are a human? Why choose to separate yourself and build barriers when you're only doing that to people who in reality are not much different to yourself? No matter where we come from in this world, we know that all of us live and die and do all in between with so much similarity. Then, as humans, we truly need to just focus on one difference, and that is who is kind and who isn't. There lies the truest question you can ask of yourself or any other in relation to their actions in life, kind or unkind. In the general context of everyday life, I don't think anyone can say that they are kind 100% of the time with 100% of the people they know, but this does not make you, for me, an unkind person. I deem unkindness to be any kind of sustained hatred, prejudice, vindictiveness, etc. against other people. And when we consider this on the scale of all humans, I just decided on one label, fellow or non-fellow. In our hearts, we all know whether our treatment of any other humans is kind or unkind. Thus, we all know if we are a fellow human or a non-fellow human, plain and simple. If you have chosen to be a non-fellow human by taking the journey I described, stopping your learning and not acknowledging the known undeniable truth, then try to change your ways, because you most certainly dislike or won't tolerate many fellow humans, those who would just show you and your family kindness. If you are a fellow human, please keep being one. And to anyone, as stated, all this is said in support of the fellow human concept and my poem Fellow Human, which you can view on this site. All the best.